For decades, a lot of people in human resources thought they had the perfect blueprint. You know, a set of instructions that, if you just follow them, would guarantee business success. But what happens when the world changes so much that the blueprint just doesn't match the reality on the ground anymore? Well, today, we're going to talk about the breakdown of that old model and the rise of a totally new way of thinking, navigating with a compass instead of a map. Let's get into it.
So let's just start with the biggest question of them all, one that has driven so much debate. Is there some kind of magic formula for good HR? You know, a simple plug-and-play set of rules that guarantees a company is going to knock it out of the park?
You know, for the longest time, the answer from both academics and business leaders was a super confident, yep, absolutely. There was this widely accepted model, this blueprint really, that laid out a very clear path from HR stuff to making more money. So let's take a look at what that actually looked like.
Okay, so here we are with that old blueprint. For years, this was pretty much the dominant theory in what's called Strategic Human Resource Management, or SHRM. And you can see why. It was simple, it seemed logical, and it promised this clear, straight line to success. Now this blueprint, it actually has an official name, the Standard Causal Model. And it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's built on this belief in a direct cause and effect relationship. You do these specific HR things, and you get this specific business outcome. It's a really clean, logical, and honestly, a very appealing idea.
So here's how that cause and effect chain was supposed to work. Step 1, a company puts in place what they call high-performance work systems. Think really intensive training, being super selective about who you hire, paying people based on performance, all that jazz. The idea is that this, step 2, makes your workforce smarter and more motivated. That's your human capital. Okay, so now you've got better people doing better work, which leads to step 3, better operations, like higher productivity. And finally, all that operational goodness drives step 4, financial performance, the bottom line. See? A perfect, simple chain, A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D.
And listen, this wasn't just some fringe idea. As the researcher Bruce Kaufman pointed out, the entire field of SHRM became laser-focused on just proving this one single relationship. For years, the Holy Grail was just to show, over and over again, that good HR directly leads to good financial numbers. That was the whole game.
Which of course brings us to the elephant in the room. If the formula is that simple, why is managing people in the real world so incredibly messy and complicated? Why isn't every company that uses this blueprint a massive success? Well, it's because the blueprint doesn't really account for the world happening outside the office walls.
And this is where we get to the heart of the matter. We're moving away from the clean, tidy theory of the blueprint and into the messy, complicated, unpredictable reality of how businesses actually work today.
See, a simple internal formula just gets totally swamped by everything hitting a company from the outside. You've got economic stuff, like inflation changing what you can afford to pay people. You've got new laws and policies dictating how you have to operate. And of course, there are these huge technological and demographic shifts that are completely changing the very nature of work itself.
And it's not just the outside world. Things inside the company are just as complex. You might have unions, a unique company culture that can either supercharge your plans or completely kill them, not to mention things like professional codes of ethics. All of this adds layers and layers of complexity that a simple A to B to C formula just can't handle.
Let's make this real with a number. By 2024, a staggering 81% of companies were expected to be using a hybrid work model. Now, that's not just a small tweak. That's a fundamental shift in where and how work gets done, and it pretty much blows up any rigid, one-size-fits-all HR plan. And check this out. The global market for diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, is projected to be worth over $15 billion by 2026. This just shows a massive shift in what companies are prioritizing. We're talking about complex cultural and social goals that go way, way beyond the simple productivity focus of that old model.
So the bottom line is this. A rigid blueprint, no matter how neat it looks on paper, just isn't built for this level of constant change and complexity. It's kind of like trying to navigate a hurricane using a map that only shows sunny days. It's just not going to work.
So this is where the thinking really started to shift. Researchers began to realize that the problem wasn't that we needed a better blueprint. The problem was the very idea of a blueprint itself. We needed a completely new tool.
And that's really the perfect metaphor for this new way of thinking. Instead of a fixed map with one best path marked in red, modern strategic HR needs a compass, a tool that helps you find your bearings and navigate in real time, adapting to the terrain as you go.
So, the directions on this new compass are what researchers call strategic tensions. These are pairs of ideas that seem like total opposites, like paradoxes. The old blueprint model would force you to pick one or the other,
But this new model says, nope, the real skill is managing both at the exact same time.
Let's look at the first big tension, fit versus flexibility. Fit is that old blueprint idea that your HR system has to perfectly match your company's long-term strategy. But flexibility recognizes that the world is always changing, so your HR system has to be able to pivot on a dime. You can't just pick one, you need both.
Here's another classic one, commitment versus control. On one hand, you want to build commitment, get employees super engaged and loyal. But on the other hand, every organization needs some control. Clear rules and procedures to make sure things get done right and everyone's compliant. The best companies don't see these as opposites. They see them as two dials they have to constantly adjust.
And our final tension is differentiation versus integration. So companies often need to differentiate, to identify their top A players and give them special treatment. But at the same time, you need integration, a unified culture where everyone feels like they're on the same team working toward the same goal. If you push too hard on one, you can totally destroy the other. The real magic is in finding that balance.
So what does all this mean for the future of HR? Well, it means we need to get really good at leaving those old, rigid maps behind and start learning how to navigate with this new compass.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The big search for the one best way to do HR is officially over. The new goal, the new skill, is all about skillfully navigating these strategic tensions, balancing fit and flexibility, commitment and control, and differentiation and integration, all at the same time.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question for you to think about. When you look at your own workplace, is its approach to people a rigid relic of the past, designed for a world that doesn't even exist anymore? Or is it a dynamic compass, built to navigate the complexities of whatever comes next? Something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.